Good morning. Welcome to Waters Garden Center. My name is Michelle, and today's class is going to be about privacy fencing, screening, and so on. Today's going to be more of show and tell, and that different plants that you can use, the variety that you can use. To get started, a lot of us are moving into new houses, and there's always somebody next door that has some unsightly items. Just be nice about it. Or you're trying to cover an electric utility box or air conditioning or something like that. So there's a lot of ways to make privacy fencing or screens. And so what we like to do is offer you a variety of different things. There's always your go-tos, which are like your privets, your red tip photinias, which are kind of standard as far as screenings go because they're fast growers. They're more used for hedges, and they're very shapeable, so you can let them get to whatever size. They're very versatile, so you can let them get to whatever size you need. So what I would like to start doing is to start on a plant and just kind of give you some descriptions, the height that it's going to get to, and kind of give you the dimensions that we're looking for. Another thing to remember is that a lot of people just want evergreens. So I do have some evergreens here, but there are a lot of different ways to get screens. Roses make a beautiful screen. You get your flowers. They look gorgeous on a fence, especially your climbing roses. So there's a lot of ways to accomplish screening. So to get started, we'll start with the basic. This is a wax leaf privet. His dimensions are going to get about 6 foot tall, sometimes 8. They are typically hedged, so a lot of people will do boxes, squares, that type of thing. But you can just let them grow, and they're a really pretty shrub. They get little white flowers that smell really pretty in the springtime. The flower itself is just kind of there. It's not very significant. I wouldn't actually call it a flower, but it is kind of pretty. It's a white spray. Next, I'd like to go to the photinia, which is this guy right next to it. It's a red tip photinia. These are all around Prescott Valley, Dewey, all of those. When you do the trimming, is that better? Yes. When you do trimming, the new growth turns red. A lot of times in the fall, it even gets redder. These guys can actually get 12 to 15 feet tall and wide. So, if you're just looking for one kind of area, one shrub to do a massive amount, that's a good one, because it will get that big.
How about soils? How does it do in soil?
Her question was, how does it work in soils? So obviously they're all around. They're not very fussy. It doesn't matter whether it's clay, the decomposed granite that we have up here this way, the clay that's out in Dewey, Granville, those areas. It's just a matter of how you care for them. One of the things with the red tips is they are prone to some of the fungal issues that we have in this area. They tend to get powdery mildew, especially during this time of year. With the monsoon rains, our temperatures are up, so you kind of have to pay attention to that. If you water by hand, try not to get the leaves wet because that'll kind of increase that problem. And just kind of pay attention once you start seeing those issues. They're really easy to take care of. You just don't want to ignore it, because if it gets too far, you're going to do some serious damage to your plant. You might have to cut it back, way back, to get it started again. Yes, ma'am?
What about javelina?
Her question was, what about javelina? Usually with these, the javelinas tend to leave them alone. However, the deer can munch on these, especially that new growth, especially in the winter time, when food and water are kind of scarce. Yes, ma'am?
What about rate of growth?
Say that again?
Rate of growth, like how quickly they grow?
Her question was rate of growth. Red tips, all plants need time to get established. So the first year, it's all about the root system. The second year, they'll do a little bit, and then the third year, they really take off. So usually, they're one of the faster growing shrubs. So I would say 10, 12 inches a year once they're established, absolutely. The next one, I'm going to pass this around. This is our email list. When you put your name in your email, you'll get a copy of today's program. We will also send you a watering guide or planting guide, so you'll know exactly how to plant when you're going about it. Let's start with you. This is an Oregon grape holly. This one is and then all of these are full sun plants. This is an Oregon grape holly. It has yellow flowers in the springtime. The flowers turn into little blue berries in the fall. Really pretty. The nice thing about this, it is a very tall shrub. This actually comes in 3 different sizes. The creeping grape holly stays lower, and it does like a little bit of shade. The compact and the aquafolia tends to get a little bit larger and doesn't mind the sun. So these guys can make a nice hedge too. These guys are evergreen as well, and they have really pretty fall color. They have their oranges and reds in them. Like I said, full sun plant. Not a lot of issues, so it's a really good one. This is a tiger eyes. Yes.
I'm sorry, back up just a second, please. The Oregon grape holly, how tall can it get, please?
It'll get about 10 to 12 feet tall. But you can keep it trimmed if that's too tall for you or for your space. You can keep it in that 6 to 8 or whatever you want.
Thank you.
It's not really hedged like the privet is or the photinia, but you can shape and size it. The next one I want to talk about is the tiger eye sumac. This is a deciduous plant. It is a 6 to 8 foot shrub. Gorgeous, gorgeous fall color. So, everybody wants evergreen, but sometimes you need some color in your yard. So this is a great way to do it. It is part of the sumac family. It does not sucker like some of the more native and wild ones do, but you will get a little bit. Okay. Just put this here. I'm not going to move the Spartan Juniper. It's too heavy for me right now. So Spartan Juniper is a really nice medium-sized tree. It's going to get in that 10 to 15 foot range and 4 to 6 wide. It's not like your native junipers where it has pollen galore, everybody starts sneezing, you get this cloud of dust that looks like smoke. So you don't have to worry about that so much. It does have a little bit of pollen, but nothing compared to the native ones. On this side, I have the Wichita Blue Juniper, kind of the same size and rate of growth deal, but you get pretty, I mean, there's totally different colors between these two. And it's this one up here that I'm talking about. Usually in that 8 inches. The better you take care of it, the faster they're going to grow. So when we're talking watering, your first year, especially in the heat of the summer, you're going to water twice a week. And we usually kind of as a guideline use the size of the bucket that the plants come in. So these guys are in this one's in a 15 and that one's in a 7. So for this guy, we're going to water 15 gallons twice a week. And that one will water 7 gallons twice a week. That being said, it is a guideline. It will depend on where you live, what kind of soils you have. If you are up here towards Thumb Butte, you have a lot of decomposed granite. You have very well-drained areas, so your water is going to go down quicker. If you're in Granville, you've got clay. Clay holds that moisture in, so you might not water twice a week. You might just do it once. So always, once you get things planted, check them. You know, we say twice a week, so when you're going to go water on Friday, check it before you turn the system on, or check it before the system comes on to see if you actually need water. Overwatering is usually one of the reasons we kill plants a lot. We all overwater. I overwater. It's kind of a natural response for us. We like to take care of things. So when we start seeing droopy leaves, yellowing, oh, we need water, let's put some more on, and then it gets worse. So watering is really important to figure out your system and kind of figuring out how much water is actually going on. While I'm on this subject, learn your systems. Learn how they work, what your emitters are, what size, how much water is actually coming out. Because one of the troubleshooting questions that we're going to ask you is how much water are you putting on? And I always hear, oh, I got a drip system. Okay, that doesn't tell me anything. You just, okay, you're watering, but how much are you watering? So really know your system, learn your emitters. If you don't know what size you've got, put them in a 5-gallon bucket, let it run for an hour, see how long it takes to fill up. They're also kind of color coded, and usually they're pretty standard as far as the reds, the blues, and that type of thing. Some of them are adjustable. I've seen most of them have a very small 0.5 or 5.0. So if you look, usually they'll say what they are. Okay, you had a question.
Will the height be on left?
Matt's on my left. This guy? Oh, the blue. He's in that 10 to 15 range as well, and the 4 to 6 white. So it's just a way of getting some different colors in your yard, where this one's a nice, almost blue spruce color. This one's nice and green.
Question, please.
Yes.
Are the junipers prone to disease?
His question was, are junipers prone to disease? Not so much. They get attacked by insects more than disease. So occasionally, like this spring, we had a couple issues that came through with the junipers. We had tip borers that got into the basic tips of the branches, and they just dropped. Plant protector will help that to keep the borers out. The other problem we get is spider mites. Spider mites blow in usually sometime in June. You'll start seeing patches. If you start seeing patches on your junipers, usually that's spider mites. What we recommend is take a snip, bring it in. We have this gorgeous microscope down there that we can see a lot of stuff on. It's amazing. It's been one of our best tools around here. But there are a lot of products that can get rid of spider mites. You just have to pay attention to your yard and attack them when you see them. Spider mites can work pretty quickly, and they will wipe out a tree in less than a week if you let it go. Well, and it depends on your infestation, but I've seen trees that I just looked at it 2 days ago and it's gone. You know, it's like, yeah. So they can be destructive. So another thing too. Yes, ma'am.
When you said you start seeing patches of what?
Brown.
Okay.
Yeah, they basically, they're kind of like an aphid in the fact that they just kind of suck the life out of your trees and shrubs. So just kind of, like I said, kind of keep an eye on it. Spider mites can attack just about anything. Our rose queen back there has been attacking our roses. We get them on the dwarf Alberta spruces, junipers. They're all over the place, and they're not specific to just one thing. They're kind of all around. So just kind of pay attention to what you have. Next to the juniper is a Sentinel aspen. The really kind of cool thing about that is that it's a narrow tree. You still get the quaky leaves of a typical aspen tree, but he stays in that, he only gets 8 feet wide. So you got 4 feet on each side. So if you have a small space and you want that aspen look, these guys are perfect for it. They are deciduous, so they will lose their leaves, but you know, you need some variety in your yard, and they make a great, you know, for summer screening. You know, if you've got a west window and you get a lot of sun, they make a great barrier for that. This guy here is I'm sorry?
Is that the tall one?
Yes, the tall one with the big leaves right there. This is a Hall's honeysuckle. This is one of the few vines that is an evergreen. Smells wonderful. Once it's established, you can get 15 to 20 feet on this guy. So, you know, on a wooden fence, they make a great border. You can clip the stakes out and just let it kind of go along the fence. Or you can put it on a trellis or an arbor and use it that way. Yes, ma'am?
So if you put it on a metal trellis and it's going to be in full sun, it won't burn the
No.
plant?
No. Yeah, she asked if it'll burn if it's on a metal trellis. No. They just kind of work their way, and once they fill out, the metal doesn't, it won't get hot. It's a Hall's honeysuckle. Hall's? Yes, Hall's Japanese honeysuckle. There is a purple leaf honeysuckle as well. Their flowers are a little bit more prominent. This one just has a little yellow and white flower. The purple leaf has more pinkish tone to it, but the purple leaf will lose its leaves. Yes, ma'am?
Do they attract a lot of bees?
They do. So I would not put it right next to my door, but you know, along a fence line or you know somewhere out there, you would definitely find a place for it.
How does it stand up to cold?
His question is how does it stand up to cold? It is cold hardy for this area. Pretty much everything that we sell is hardy for this area. So when you're looking at the tags, there is a U.S. hardiness zone on there usually. We are a zone 7 here in Prescott. And pretty much the whole Tri-City area, Quad City area, we're kind of all in that 7. Some of us are closer to 8 down in Dewey. The mayor's definitely an 8. Up here, Groom Creek, you're probably closer to the 6. So
How about putting it in a pot?
Her question was putting it in a pot. If it's a very large pot, you're going to be better off. These guys are pretty aggressive with that rate of growth, that 15 feet a year. I've seen trunks, this big. So it'll work for a while, probably 5 or 6 years, but eventually you might blow out the pot. On this side here, I've got a trumpet vine. This is the Balboa Sunset trumpet vine. This guy is deciduous, so he will lose his leaves. This is another aggressive vine. He gets a really big trunk as well. Gorgeous flowers. This is another bee lover, hummingbird lover. Pretty much anything that flowers, you're going to have bees, unfortunately. It's just fact of life. So just be strategic where you're putting it, and the bees won't bother you. This guy, his growth isn't quite as aggressive as the honeysuckle, but they do vine. I've seen them up walls. Yavapai cowledge, I actually kind of cut them into shrubs and things. They look really pretty. When you guys leave, if you go out this side door, we've got some really cool ones in that are more tree form. If you're interested in something in a pot, those probably would be better because they've been trained on a stick, so they're not going to be quite as aggressive as these guys. They do send out runners. They're, like I said, they're pretty aggressive. So you don't want them where where they can go wild. They'll be a lot happier, and you'll be a lot happier because you won't have to go snipping along the way. This guy here is one of our shade shrubs. This is a blue combo holly. So when we say shade shrubs, we are talking about morning sun only. They cannot take our intense sunshine here. A lot of you are, I'm guessing, some of them of you are new. So Prescott has a kind of a unique growing area. We are a mile high and we have very intense sunshine. We also have very little humidity except for now, which we are like 50% or something like that is killing us all. But we need the rain, so we won't complain too much. So afternoon shade is what this guy needs. The nice thing about the blue combo is it has male and female in it, so you don't need to get the berries and such. This guy gets about 12 feet tall and about probably 6 to 8 wide. So he's a really nice tall shrub. Like I said, you can use him for privacy. Or just a nice little shrub in the backyard.
Growth rate on that?
Growth rate on this guy is a little bit slower than a lot of things. I would say probably 4 or 5 inches. Usually it's creep, leap, or sleep, creep, and leap. So your first year, all roots. Second year, it's going to grow a little bit. And third year, you're going to get your leaping. This guy is a Japanese yew. This is also, and these are both evergreens as well. This is a Japanese yew. This is the Hicks yew. This is a pillar, so 3 feet wide, 12 feet tall. This is also a shade plant. So again, it can tolerate some morning sun, but that hot afternoon, it'll start to fry. This guy does give berries as well. And if I remember right, the berries are a little bit poison. They're poisonous to dogs, not a little bit poisonous to dogs. This guy here is a Paranai cotoneaster. He is really pretty. He's totally different than any other cotoneasters. They have more graceful branching, 6 to 8 feet tall. Pretty little white flowers in the springtime and red berries in the summer and fall.
So I'm trying to keep out of these people way back here, but we do have one question back to the halls. The question is, can the halls live in a container?
The container is going to, they will live in a container for a little while, but they're pretty aggressive, so you'll end up either blowing out your pot or you'll want to repot them. They do better in the ground. This guy here, who smells really pretty, standing here right next to it, this is a iceberg climbing rose. This is iceberg purple. There is an iceberg white as well. So, you know, if you had a wooden lodgepole fence line, having a couple of these, you know, creeping along, roses make a great one. A lot of winters, they actually don't lose their leaves. It just kind of depends on how cold we get. And roses do very well here. Of all the other shrubs that we do, roses do really, really well here.
So what's the name of that?
This is an iceberg purple rose.
Do you have to prune the flowers off?
Her question was, do you have to prune the flowers off? They do better, but not necessarily. You'll get more flowers if you do. Most of your shrub roses, if you do not prune them, they're kind of made that way, so they just kind of pop them off and then just move on to the next. This one here is a orange rocket barberry. Barberries are deciduous, but this one's going to get about 5 feet tall and about 3 wide. So it just kind of depends on how much you're trying to obscure with your screening. Gorgeous orange color. There's a Hellman barberry right behind us, which has the purple color. Same 3 feet wide and about 5-6 feet tall. Yes, ma'am.
Again, deer and a javelina.
Her question was deer and javelina. Typically, because they are barbed, there's stickers on there. Typically, they leave them alone. Sometimes they don't. It kind of.
Okay.
That's our disclaimer. They're not supposed to. Grapevines. These guys can really make a nice privacy fence and give you fruit to go along with it. Kind of depends on what you want to do with it, whether you are, you know, growing it for grapes or if you're just using it as a shade barrier on an arbor, or whether you're growing it along the fence, you know, just to give you some wind protection or to obscure the neighbor's yard or whatever. These guys can fill in really quickly if you let them kind of go wild. There is a gentleman that lives on Pioneer Parkway that has his whole backyard is full of grapes, and they look gorgeous. They are deciduous. All tangled. Autumn-blaze maple. This tree right here is an autumn-blaze maple. We have a ton of them right now, and we'll probably get more in because they're starting to turn, well, they'll turn red in a month or so. Nice shade tree. If you have you know, you want to block out the sun, or, you know, you just want to have a little bit of a screen between your neighbor's house and yours. These guys get about 40 feet tall and about 30 wide. Pretty easy care. You know, feed. We recommend you feed 3 times a year. With these, the extra sulfur in the fall will give you extra color. It will help bring out that red. So Really easy tree to grow. There are, yes ma'am,
What was the first name?
autumn blaze maple.
Autumn Blaze?
So this is just a sample of the things that we have here. You can use pampas grass. Right now I have some regular pampas grass that gets in the 10-foot range, 10 feet tall and about 8 wide. If you need to take up a space. I also have the ivory feathers, which is the dwarf one. And when I say dwarf, it's 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. Really pretty in the fall. Has those big ivory feather blooms that are spectacular. We have 3 right out front. Yes, ma'am.
This might sound funny, but on grapevines and stuff like that, just put it on fences where you have open range cattle, they'll eat the grapevines, and, you know.
Her question was is if cattle will eat the grapevines. I don't know about that. I would assume they would, but check with your vet is usually the best way to do that. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Did you talk about, I got here a little late, did you talk about the red berry plants, pyracantha or smoke bush?
I have not, but I was fixing to.
Okay.
So her question is about pyracantha and smoke bush. I wasn't going to mention pyracantha because we're out right now. But pyracantha is a evergreen shrub vine. It's kind of in that middle range. But they're very aggressive. They can get 10 feet tall and wide. They do have thorns, which some people love them and some others hate them. But they are an evergreen, I mean, there's not a lot that, hurt them. They're pretty disease resistant. They can get fire blight if you have junipers and roses. I mean, it's kind of in that rose family that way. But drought tolerant, you don't, once every 2 weeks once they're established is all you have to take care of those. Really pretty white flowers in the springtime. It's just like it fills that whole area with white flowers. And then you have the orange berries in the fall and winter, and the birds will eat them like crazy. You'll make them very happy. Smoke bush was the other thing she mentioned. Smoke bush, smoke trees, they're kind of one of those medium-sized trees. They get in that 12 to 15 foot range. What? It's okay. It happens. But we left that open because it's usually so hot in here, and it really helps having that open this morning, so bear with us. So back to smoke bush, 12 to 15 feet tall. Someone brought me a picture in the other day of one that had been hedged up, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I've never seen a smoke tree hedged that way. It looked to be about 6-7 foot tall, but they had actually rounded it. It had a beautiful shape. There was not, that wasn't scrawny, with the limbs sticking through or anything else. It was really pretty. So that's another one. Blue spruce, if you're trying to, hide your neighbor's house or whatever, they make a great one. Kind of in that moderate growing range. They're going to get about 6 inches a year. Your blue spruce is going to get in that 20 to 40 foot range. Usually about 15 to 20 wide. Fat Albert is kind of the same growth habit. That one only gets 20 tall and 20 wide. It's a little bit wider, so that type of thing. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. How do hydrangeas do here?
Her question was about hydrangeas. Hydrangeas do well here if you have kind of an established yard with a lot of shade. morning sun, they do really well. They are deciduous. You do need to amend the soil, especially if you like the blue ones or pink ones. So you're going to sulfur in the spring and in the fall.
So they basically more shade than.
Correct, correct.
Do you have any wisteria?
Her question was wisteria, and unfortunately I do not. It's kind of one more of that spring vine thing, and they've been really hard to find this year. But check in the springtime when we do get them.
So what are you talking about? Wisteria?
Wisteria is another fairly aggressive vine. They can do shade or sun. I've seen them in both situations. I have noticed that they do a little bit better if they're a little bit protected from that afternoon sun, but they not necessarily. Yes.
Suggestions for somebody with a concrete wall around the backyard?
Her question was about a concrete wall around her back. So, I mean, right here, there's a ton of suggestions. On both sides and right behind me, we just got a shipment of trellises. They're kind of that rusty iron look. We also have a gentleman that does more of the, it's not stainless steel, but it's powder coated, usually more of that slate gray that we get in the springtime. But any of those, you can just have them against your block wall or your fence. You can do the junipers. I've seen, a row of junipers on your block wall. That'll give you a little bit of privacy. And the nice thing about the junipers is they don't get super tall, so if you do have a view of the mountains and you still want it, you can, if your area is long enough, you can still get it. Her question was windbreak trees. Again, the junipers do really well. Your spruces, your Arizona cypress is another one that works really well here. Arizona cypress is one of the faster growing trees. They're going to top out in that 20 to 35 foot range, and usually about 20 wide. More native looking than your junipers here, but another nice choice. Yes, ma'am.
This has got nothing to do with privacy, but for that front row, I have not seen any iris growing along houses. Do irises work okay up here?
Her question was irises. They do. Irises are a spring bloomer, and you kind of just have to look around. They grow everywhere, and they're pretty drought tolerant. They don't need a lot of care. A little bone meal and phosphorus, superphosphate in this fall, and they'll bloom in the springtime. Don't usually use them for a privacy fence, but they do grow here.
On the front.
Yeah.
What about jasmine?
Her question was jasmine, and unfortunately I do not have any, but they do grow here. We usually get the white star jasmine. It is a zone 7, so it is cold hardy here. I would do a little mulching in the winter time just for the first year or two just to get it established, but other than that they do just fine. A little afternoon shade as well. They tend to get a little fried on the edges if you do not have them in that situation.
I'm new to this area, completely from the valley. What about irrigation systems? Is it necessary to have one, or what is your feeling about that?
Her question was about irrigation systems and whether they're necessary or not. I would say yes. It kind of depends on your lifestyle. If you like to go out and water, great. I do that all the time. I don't have an irrigation system. I'm just not set up for it. But most people do have an irrigation system. Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
Willows.
Willows. Her question was about willows. Willows do well here. The globe willow, which when you leave, if you kind of go out that front gate, or front door right there. I do have a wonderful specimen of a globe willow. Globe willows are going to get in that 20-foot range. They're pretty drought tolerant for a willow. Weeping willows will get larger, but they need a little bit more water. Yeah. I'll get you next.
I was interested in the blue juniper. Could you talk about the pollen in that juniper?
Her question was the pollen on the Wichita blue juniper. Again, they're not, there's a little pollen, but they're not like your native junipers where you get this smoke cloud. Yes, Ken.
Okay, we've had a couple of things come in from
Okay.
live stream. One is a comment from Adrian. Says Lady Banks roses look great on block walls and they're fast growers.
Absolutely. His thing was about Lady Banks roses, and they are absolutely fabulous. And they are an evergreen as well. They come in white and yellow, and they do make an excellent specimen for a block wall or a fence.
And then one more, kind of an open-ended question here from Renee. She'd like to know, of the plants you talked about, are there any that will work in Phoenix?
Where? In Phoenix. That's a very good question.
That town next to Hal?
Right. So, you know, I honestly, I'm not really familiar with that. I would imagine the honeysuckle would. Yes, the honeysuckle will. It's a zone 11, and I think you guys are 10, 11 down there. So yes, this will absolutely work down there. And this one too. So yeah, there are things up here that will work in Phoenix.
Well, I'm a transplant from the valley. The honeysuckle, trumpet vine, grapes all do really well. Privet, I mean, a lot of these plants will work well down there.
Awesome. So she just said that the privet, both the honeysuckle and the trumpet vine will work down there. So that's great news. Yes, ma'am.
We had a trumpet vine on our stucco wall around our garden, and it's wonderful. It grows, and there's suckers everywhere, and it's always a great. But when it sticks to the wall, if you trim it, it pulls the stucco or the paint off.
So it's like an ivy.
So it's like an ivy, yes. It's wonderful. It's an absolutely fabulous plant. But it does have this propensity to stick to the wall, and then if you want to cut it back, it's gonna be a mess.
So basically, what she was saying is to be really careful with a lot of these vines on your stucco. They are a vine, and they do kind of creep into crevices and such, so they might stick to your walls. So you might want to do an anchor system of some sort to give them something to grow on instead of just the wall. Yes, sir.
What are your biggest insect or disease problems here?
Biggest insect or disease problem here, we have a kind of a full gambit. It kind of depends on the full type of year, or what time of year that you are looking at. Usually in the spring we get a lot of aphids, spider mites, like I said, kind of hit in that June time frame. Powdery mildew, black spot, all those fungal issues usually start hitting about now when we have the humidity and the heat. We also have an aphid issue kind of towards the late summer into fall. What I usually tell people is take a look at your plants. If you start seeing spotty areas, or it just doesn't look right, look underneath, because that's where your bugs usually are. Kind of look under there. They like that coolness. That's usually where you need to go. How are we doing? Okay, a couple other things that I wanted to hit on. I did hit on the blue spruce. Deodar cedar is a great tree, fast growing, fairly fast growing for an evergreen. We also call them kind of California Christmas trees. There's some down at the courthouse, and they're kind of all over the place. So they're a really nice tree that can give you some privacy, give you some sun relief as well, and they're evergreen. I did the grasses. What else? Pretty much you can do a lot of different things for privacy, you know, whether it's a trellis or plants. Just get creative with it. You know, you don't necessarily have to cover everything. Sometimes if you just give yourself a little block in between, it'll break it up enough where, you know, you have something to look at and you're not paying attention to somebody else's yard. Yes, ma'am.
We had a whole yard of little cypress that does that spread to other plants, or are you trying to fill back in?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We had a whole yard of Leland cypress, so of course they're all dying.
Okay. Her question was on Leland cypress. Leland cypress was one of the most popular planted tree probably about 10 years ago or so. They're all over the place. They came down with, it's called ceridium canker. And unfortunately, there is absolutely nothing you can do about that. There are a few trees that are susceptible to it. And we actually have a handout down in the store if you want to learn more about it, but it is ceridium canker. The Arizona cypress is one of the last ones on the list, so they're not as susceptible as your Lelands, but unfortunately, if you start seeing that brown spot, and usually it starts in the center and just kind of grows out from there, if you have it, get rid of it. And keep your the other trees that you have as healthy as possible to kind of alleviate that. They'll probably come down with it, but you can kind of keep it off for a little while.
So you think, because I was told originally, they're like, they're just gonna die, there's nothing you can do, just keep them as long as you can stand and look at them and then take them down. But you think it's better to take them down?
I think if you get rid of them, there's less likely for it to spread. And I don't like weak trees in my yard because if they break or, you know, you never know their strength and how they're doing. Any other questions? So we have a lot of folks around that know a lot of things, so if you do have questions, I will be still here. If you want to come on up and ask, I am available and I'd be happy to answer questions. Doug and Susan are also here, Lisa's here, Cheryl's here, so if you do have questions, find one of us so we can be happy to help you. Thank you.